Okay, welcome to this new episode of Questioning Regeneration. So it's a joy for our team to be gently facilitating and hosting this space, which is very much co-created. Today's episode is focusing on regenerative art, a very exciting topic, a lot of interest, a lot of energy, a lot of momentum around it. We have organized this entire session in partnership with Evgenia Emmet, who is going to share in a second, representing Eternal Forest. So just to place things a little bit, Questioning Regeneration is a series of online sessions which started in January this year and will keep going until August. It's a series of online, free, open events that aims at supporting the Gathering of Tribes. The Gathering of Tribes is a regenerative 5-day festival that takes place every 2 years in the Portuguese countryside. We aim to catalyze the emergence of a regenerative ecosystem of collaboration and to support regenerative initiatives and individuals around the world. I will leave it at this because time is short and there's a lot to be shared by our wonderful initiators today. But Simon, I wanted to hand over to you just to explain a little bit the concept of questioning regeneration as a whole and what do we mean by questioning, why
Indeed.
questions are really important to us and what our journey has been with this so far.
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. So, questioning regeneration, yes. The idea that we had originally was we were going to split up the regenerative world into different kind of like labels, different topics, different spheres, as we've come to call them. And then we realized that different people were talking about different things or using words in different ways, which is not surprising. So really, to get down to the core of it, we came back to the power of questions and the power of questions to bring people together. Quite often, when you've got a definition, you can argue about it. When you've got a question, you can work together on addressing that question, and the question can be very generative if it's a nice, open, honest question. So basically, the point, the hope, apart from actually introducing each other and getting to know each other a bit, which is great, the other aim of these sessions is to bring up the questions which are going to bring us together at the gathering, either before the gathering, at the gathering, or even after the gathering. Back to you, Audrey. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Simon. So I won't explain the whole format in details because it will be boring, and I trust that all of you can surrender to the flow of this session. But just to give you a little idea, we will be moving today from plenary sessions to breakout rooms. The breakout rooms will be there to make sure that all of you have a chance to speak, to express, to share. And the plenary sessions will be focused around those beautiful humans who we call our initiators, who have been invited by Evgenia, who will be sharing stories and questions and feelings and thoughts about pieces of art that they have brought with them today. Evgenia, I'll hand over to you to share a bit more about Eternal Forest Camp at the Gathering and regenerative art in general.
So welcome everybody, and thanks so much for joining today. For me, it's a really, really special occasion to bring all of you together to really think about a subject that I don't think anybody has a crystal clear understanding what it is, but what we all feel in different corners of the world. And this is a great example today, this circle that is coming together. I think a lot of people are coming from at least 3 continents, I believe. So I think a lot of people are thinking about regeneration and what it means. And as artists and people who are connected with arts and culture, we are thinking as well. So just to kickstart and to give you a little bit of kind of a thought that I had while I was putting together with Gathering of the Tribes this event today, I would like to read something I wrote. And so this event is part invitation, part initiation, and part provocation to think how art can be an active player in the regenerative movement and support life on this planet, both human and more than human. What is regenerative art? Regenerative art is art that contributes conceptually, philosophically, spiritually, and physically to regenerating ecosystems of human and modern human life. It brings into the perspective nature's intelligence and sentience. It enables us to step into reverent and reciprocal connection with the land and its values and it values an ecosystemic view in which every being is essential, sovereign, has a voice, and is in its rightful place. Regenerative art does so through storytelling, ecological interventions, and supporting communities in creating regenerative practices and rituals. Regenerative art questions established narratives which are not serving life, rewilding our imagination, and recreating nature-based practices in ways. Regenerative art takes on traditional forms of art in landscape, visual art, film installation, performance, sound art, and it always links back to life and vital connections between all the living systems. How can regenerative art help uplift people, communities, and land to help think and create a harmonious coevolution? And then I put a few questions together as a little provocation for us to think together. What if artists could be part of regenerative projects from day one, be it urban or rural? What if artists could be invited to be part of projects with focus on ecosystem restoration and long-term protection? What needs to be in place so that artists can contribute in a meaningful way and these kinds of practices become a norm in our life? And how do artists enter and work with communities in a way that is reciprocal as opposed to extractive? So this is just the beginning that I wanted to offer to all of you, but I'm sure all of you are bringing incredible questions together. And with this, I guess we will continue, and we are going to go into breakout rooms to do a little bit of warming up and to get to know each other.
Thank you so much, Evgenia. Very beautiful introduction. So I will give you a prompt for the breakout rooms, just so you know, this breakout room that you will now be moved into will be quite short. We have 10 minutes. You don't need to worry about the time. I will send messages to tell you when you have 1 and 2 minutes left. The purpose of this breakout room is just to get to know each other. So it's just a check-in breakout room, is to come into the space, to understand who we're speaking to. I'm sharing with you a prompt. You don't have to follow it. You just can use it if you don't know what to say to one another or if you're really shy. So we will be in rooms of 3 to 4 people, and the prompt is, what's your name, where's your physical body, and what is your first memory of art? You can already share more about what your work is, what you're putting your energy into those days, what questions you've brought, if you feel like it. But remember, we have 10 minutes. So I will now move everyone to breakout rooms. If anything is unclear, feel free to write it in the chat section. And I see you in 10 minutes, everyone.
And there's Audrey. Hi, Audrey. Good to see you.
I was left alone in the plenary. I was so sad. So the recording is following me. So just so you know, this is also being recorded. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. Oh, nice to meet you both. I'm Andrew. I'm in Geneva, and I am involved with something called Third Horizon Earth, which is I get essentially I call it a transition catalyst. It's an organization dedicated to helping identify innovation in the regen space and share it with people who are trying to also innovate. And art is part of what we do. So art is near and dear. We actually had Evgenia in a little session a couple weeks ago to talk about art as well. So I'll share that with the full group. But nice to meet you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Andrew. Who wants to follow?
I can go next. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Cool. I'm Marta, and I'm from Leiria in Portugal, and that's where I am. And I represent my family project, Floresta das Lebres, as well. But I came here because of Evgenia. I've been following her work, and it just relates in so many ways. And so this just called to me because I want to be in circle and asking questions and finding out answers in community. And that's a lot of what our project is trying to do as well. It's just a hobby project, but when I say hobby, it's very dear to our hearts, but we have other jobs for now to support ourselves. So it's in our free time. And it's just trying to bring people to nature, to trying to re-spark that connection in everybody. We came back to Portugal in 2020 amidst COVID. All we had was the land, basically. And so it's been a journey, and we just want to share it. And that's why I'm here, to keep learning and to keep sharing. Thank you, and so wonderful to meet you all.
Giovanni, you want to share? Or should
Sure. I am Giovanni Aloy. I've been working on the subject of nature, different capacities since the very early 2000s, when animal studies was emerging in the UK, Australia, and the United States. And I founded Antenna, the Journal of Nature and Visual Culture, in 2006, still publishing and editing away 63 issues later. The purpose of Antenna was to generate a space for scholars, artists, curators, and students who wanted to engage with the environment, nature, plants, animals, at a time in which publishers and institutions in general had a sense of still nurture that kind of mistrust or lack of interest for the natural world. And of course, things have changed a great deal ever since, but we've kept Antenna at the edge of difficult conversations, so still occupying very interesting areas of knowledge production, as well as cross-pollination that still cannot happen in other circumstances. And I also curate exhibitions, teach at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and write books, essays on nature in art, mostly. I believe in the power some art has to change our minds and to help us better access speculative realms, as well as dimensions that oftentimes are precluded to especially Western philosophy for reasons that I'm sure you're all familiar with. So I believe in art that can actuate change, and I've been focusing more recently in what I will present later on, which is an example of phytoremediation. So I'm thinking more and more about how can art change minds, but also how can art effectively change realities for the better.
Where are you based, Giovanni?
Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you so much. I'm a bit shy. So I'm Audrey. I'm co-founder of the Gathering of Tribes, currently based in the Azores, but I split my time between mainland Portugal and the islands. Art. I've always been fascinated by art. My relationship with art has always been closer to literature. That's what I studied. That's what my culture was. I'm very French in that way, I guess. And sadly, I kind of moved away from it when I was fairly young, I guess, because of what I thought society expected of me. So I'm always really interested and delighted to join spaces like this one, and I have a lot of respect for those people who had the courage to go into it, because I think the tides may be bringing us into different directions. So yeah, high sensitivity to art, no direct experience except my writing, I guess, and very curious to see what comes up today. And also very curious to explore a little bit this word regenerative that comes before art. I know, I mean, regenerative anything is bringing a lot of questions today, I think, rightly so. But regenerative art, definitely, I've had a few people raise their eyebrows or frown, like, what is this? What does it mean? So yeah, super looking forward to your different takes and perspectives on this. Thank you. We have 4 minutes left, so I wonder if we should do another round, maybe. All of us sharing either a question, either a memory, something more directly in relation with art, now that we're acquainted.
Yeah, I think there's so many questions. So yeah, what is regenerative art? So somebody asked me, isn't all art regenerative? And it took me a while to figure that one out. For me, the answer is no. Well, no, not. But anyways, it's like I think we're in that space where there's so many questions, which is very cool. So we're trying right now to figure out, like, even in the context of our organization, what curatorial guidelines would look like. So I'm just kind of winging it right now. So I'd love to talk to you, Giovanni, at some point, because obviously you've been doing this for a long time. We're just trying to figure that out. I would love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing and also what Marta is doing as well, or brought you, I guess, back to Portugal.
I think just, to like pick brains, it's a very difficult question because it taps into a history of art history that separates design from craft, propaganda from highly elevated art that transcends reality. So there are all these quantities that art historians can easily get trapped into, and that oftentimes breed prejudice, I think. So for instance, the example I'm going to talk about later on today, to many people might not even classify as art, is like regenerating land that was polluted by a disused gas station and turning them into phytoremediation gardens art. Yes, I think it is, especially if we accept that a urinal upside down is art, then there's no reason why we shouldn't be accepting that something that actually benefits the environment should be art. So that's been my slapstick answer to the skeptics. But it's a really tricky question because oftentimes when art is such a broad domain, as you all know, that when we think art, I think one of the interesting activities we could have done today was to think about, to check what appears in our minds the very moment we are asked to think of a work of art. Is it still a painting? Is it still a sculpture? Hundreds of years after things have changed and more media have been added to the mix, or are we truly occupying a more posthuman sphere with the conception of what art can be? And if I say think of a work of art, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And it might be a piece of bio art or something that's out there, like a piece of land art that is obscure and all the stuff that museums still have problems dealing with today. I mean, that could be fun.
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
I actually don't know much of what to say. I don't feel competent enough to express any opinion about art. But I didn't say too much in the beginning. And just to say that, to me, the best concept of what art is nature itself. And so the work, we came back to Portugal because of COVID. We were relocating from UK to Greece for a happier, healthier life. And then COVID happened and we were in an island. I'll try to make this quick. And so we had to go back. And what we're doing here is, well, the land started regenerating us in many ways. We started observing its natural regeneration, and we're following along with anything that is in that principle. And so I think maybe regenerative art is anything that achieves regeneration, being in humans or in nature. If combined, perfect. That's my best close answer.
That's wonderful, Marta. And actually, it also made me think about the issue from an art historical standpoint, which is underpinned by what you explained so well, as the idea of function that we always attribute to art that is regenerative. If it becomes regenerative beyond the mind, then that's when the art historical kind of canon attaches this stigma.
Hello again, everyone. How was this? Does everyone know each other? Everyone is more relaxed? Mauricio is happy? Great. Amazing. So now let's get on with it. Very excited for this next part of the session. We have now quite a bit of time. We have 35 minutes in this plenary session. And I will let Evgenia lead us through the program for the next 45 minutes. And I will hand over to our beautiful initiators.
Thank you so much, Audrey. So welcome back, everybody. And yeah, hope that you had inspiring conversations already. Before we invite those who prepared stories to share them, I would like to also give a little bit of context once again, especially for those who were arriving a bit later. So the context for this conversation is really to think about art in the context of regenerative movement, and more so in the context of upcoming gathering of the tribes that will take place in September in the north of Portugal, and you're all very, very welcome. And just to say that Eternal Forest as organization will be creating its own camp there with its own program, so I'm very much inviting you to join if you want. And I'm going to share here the invitation. So there is a web link and you can have a look and you can read through. And there is a little form at the bottom, which you can already fill in with your intention if you're really willing to participate. It's going to be a very fun open camp where it will be a place for lots of things, of course, for art, for lots of thinking about regeneration from cultural and artistic perspective, but also supporting a little bit the process of Eternal Forest emerging into being. So without further ado, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to invite you, those who prepared a picture and a story, one by one. I'm going to call out the names just to make it easier. And you have no more than 3 minutes. And I'm going to use this magic ball to make a little sound when it's 2 minutes 30. So we can just get a bit of momentum and the rhythm to that. So
Before you start, Evgenia, I just want to say I've put a message in the chat, but it's a lot of us in the room. So if you can please just share all the questions that arise for you, during the sharings in the chat section, that would be amazing. And then we will do a group compilation of all of those. Sorry, Evgenia, keep going.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's a really important one. So actually, continuing to what just Audrey said, I think it's really important to think about what we're trying to do here, not that we are trying to bring all the answers that exist. Of course, there is historical perspective. There is very specific examples that I'm sure we'll see some of them today that lots and lots of artists have contributed to. And we are here continuing this work, continuing in maybe slightly different way, maybe going a little bit deeper, maybe going with context that also is shifting and changing. culturally, ecologically, politically, and so on. So I'm going to invite our first participant to share their screen and their story. So Giovanni, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to try to make the most of my 3 minutes, and I hope you can see my image. So this is from the website of an artist that used to be based in Chicago called Frances Whitehead. I'm going to drop her name in the chat later so you can look her up along with the website. And Frances has been for many years engaged in regeneration of the kind that often strikes art historians and the art world as perhaps a little too practical and a little too hands-on to be classified as art. But I think that her artistic process and the outcomes of her practice are extremely important right now. She was a pioneer doing this project called Slow Up, Clean Up between 2008 and 2012. So we're looking at over 10 years ago at this point. And I think that this is one of the areas that I'm very interested in terms of what art can actually do, regenerative art can actually do, beyond making us think differently about the environment and the non-human world or more than human world, and also beyond educating us. In a nutshell, what White did was engaging with the city, which is what was mentioned earlier as perhaps one of the applications of regenerative art in the present, in order to be part of a decontamination process of disused gas station around the city of Chicago that were heavily polluted by heavy metals and oil. And with the help of botanists, White researched specific species of plants that could thrive in the Chicago area in order to design these gardens. So reclaiming land that was left behind as a desert and reclaiming it in a way that was both useful and beautiful for the community, engaging in education programs, and also capitalizing on the phytoremediation power of plants. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the idea that some species of plants are capable of extracting pollutants from the soil. They have to be, of course, handled at harvest time in very careful ways in order not to disperse those pollutants in the environment again. But it also is an invitation to rethink the way we garden, the way we select species and varieties, the way in which we think about time. The title of the work, Slow Cleanup, spells it out very clearly. This is not the quick remedy that multinational corporations often use when they clean up the mess that they leave behind. How am I doing for time? Good? I didn't hear the gong. Have you been ringing it for 3 minutes? Okay, good. Great, I think I'm done.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. So just before we go to the next one, I want to ask Audrey a technical little thing. Can you please mute everyone else apart from the speaker if it's possible? Thank you so much. So, and the next person that I would like to invite is Ines Ferreira Norman. Go for it, please.
Hello. Thanks, Evgenia. Thanks, Audrey. Thanks for the invitation. I'm going to be sharing with you an image that I produced at the Gathering of Tribes last 2 years ago. So in talking of what regenerative art means for me or for my practice, my artistic practice, I work a lot with soil and I work a lot with compost. So turning food scraps into fertile, you could say soil, but scientifically apparently is not correct because soil also has the mineral component. but I do like to call it soil because it's so alive and it's so rich, and it's, you put a seed on it. Actually, you don't even need to put a seed on it because things just sprout back again from the kitchen scraps. I always have voluntary plants coming up, nature's bounty. And so I've always been interested in the power of life within the soil and what that vibration gives us. And in talking of what regenerative art means to me, it means a lot to receive this vibration that comes from the soil. And that vibration can have effects. I don't know if you've heard of, all of you heard of something called earthing. It's also something scientifically proven that reduces inflammation in your illnesses. And there's this connection between these areas of knowledge that we know as science, and then a more spiritual realm. So I think that the earth conveys all of these approaches, and that's what I try to do with my artwork as well. So in this picture you see here, I could have actually brought you a picture where there's more collective work being done, because this was a collective and participatory performance. But I chose this image in which you can see at the back someone still buried, and someone getting up, so to speak, from their burial. Because the feedback I've had from the people who participated, and myself, because I continued to bury myself throughout the years after this experiment, but mainly relying on the feedback I've had from other people, is that it is indeed rejuvenating to bury yourself, to be in connection. This phenomenological experience of experiencing firsthand this vibration of the soil, this richness, the nutrients, all of the feelings that the earth can really give you all around your body. It's something really, really impactful. And I know that including one of the participants even changed their name after this performance because it was so impactful, so rejuvenating. So I think regenerative art should bring this rejuvenating to us as well, because we need to find better ways to blend in with the natural world. It's not the natural world that needs lessons, it's us. So by us feeling this in first hand, we'll get a better understanding of our place in the cosmos, and therefore learn humbly through the microlife inside all that soil that's vibrating around us. That's me.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy to see that this work was actually completed at the Gathering of Tribes #1, and it's so exciting to see you present today. So as we are progressing on our journey, I invite everybody, participants, all of us, to write questions in the chat, the questions that are emerging as you're hearing stories. So with this, I'm going to pass the word to Andrea. Andrea, you here? Can you share your screen, picture, and your screen, please?
Let me share the screen. Here, share screen. Desktop, share, okay. Here we go. Okay. So this is Natalia, who is on this call with us. Natalia Meroño, who is a Buto performer. And for me, I'm not an artist, but I have found in participating in workshops of Buto with Natalia, the artist in me, and it's this allowing myself to allow that creative life force to run through my body, to surrender and to discover that perhaps I am an artist too, or that there's an expression, and it's this connection with nature. So here, you know, I love that they can organize workshops where people that are not artists can come and participate. And this, I think, is a regenerative art. And I think that it kind of, we do the workshops with Natalia, but then at the end, there's always a part where there's an audience. And when you perform for an audience, where you give yourself to that moment and to that expression, and it's been extremely regenerative for me to suddenly perceive myself as an artist or an expressive artist, that this is the medicine, that this is what we need to return to continuously be evolving and yes, and suddenly realize that we are something else, and to be able to do this practice in nature and offering ourselves to nature. You're enveloped by this great body being that we are a part of, and that runs through us. So this is, I guess, what I would like to say is that I think that for the regenerative movement, each and every one of us will tap into our expression, and then we just need to return and practice, and there we are regenerating as nature itself. So that's my offering today. Thank you, Natalia, and thank you, Evgenia.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much. And thank you, Natalia, as well. It's lovely to have both of you here. And thank you so much for sharing this really beautiful work with us. So our next participant is Landra. And I want to invite you to share your screen and speak a little story from your side of Portugal.
Hello. We're gonna cheat here because we thought it might just be easier to share a few images on the website, which is this project which Mathilde, who's also one of the participants, knows quite well, which started as a prompt from the municipal gallery in Porto. It was supposed to be a one-day event, and we decided to get into this patio, and we finally got permission to open it up. So we opened 2 meters wide by 30 meters long. So it's a really long strip of this patio. And here on the right, we also made a wall panel with all the steps of what we did to basically regenerate from having opened the cement and everything that we found in between, and the regeneration methods we used to basically bring the soil back to life. And we recorded all the steps. So it's made into a film, which eventually we're showing now as a sort of 3-4 screen installation, and also in an online magazine where you can literally go and see all the steps in like how to make a cement laden patio into an agroforest garden. So the idea is that it could be replicated by anyone who has interest
easily.
In it.
And that's it, you're going really well.
And this is sort of the final stage of the patio.
Yeah, one thing we decided to do, and was a bit hard to accomplish, was to speedily use all the debris removed from the area, 6 tons to be specific, into useful things. Because of that matter, speed, and people wanting to see the finalized product quite quickly. There's a lot of pressure in projects like this to pay if you have the money, and having money generally is the problem, to get rid of stuff, and not wanting to get rid of stuff and to use it in a slower, low-tech way is seen as not sexy. And indeed it wasn't, because we spent 2 weeks removing the debris and the reinoculation and all the sciencey biology things, and 6 months building back stuff with that debris. So that's the real truth of these projects. Without money, you can do stuff well, but you do it slow.
Yeah. And then by applying liquid, solid compost, using kitchen scraps from the cafe, and a whole other, like, we found tar in the middle of the cement and the rubble. So we had to we had to sort of get a fungi and sort of train it to eat the tar from the soil.
That specific type of tar.
And then we got the community around, because this is an association.
There's a bowl there.
Oh, that was wrong. Okay, is that it? And then this is an association, so we got the members to give away plants for the garden. These trees were like transplanted from being 6-year-old, and then they fruited within 6 months of being there. And we were just trying to get them to live, so that was very exciting. That now the old men, but because it was an old workings men club, actually use the garden and plant things there, so it's really become alive again, which is very exciting.
It's growing quite well
for us. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. How wonderful. Project with legacy and with continuity. This is really great to hear. So, Leonor, your time and space.
Hi, let me just check if I can do this right. I think so. It's with you? Yeah, perfect. So this is an artist, a Portuguese artist, Antonio Pop. And this was a performance, the first performance we did at Bussaco. I just found an association there, and what we are trying in the association is to bring people to the wood. Bussaco is a special wood, a mountain, with these Carmelite monks that used to live there, and in somehow we thought that artists could be just like a new Carmelite monks that are bringing people to the woods, because the community there does not go to the woods, don't go to the mountains. So the people from the village just stay in the village. And we want to just do this reverse process, and like a healing process of the community, and asking people, invite people to come and stay with the artists. And this was the first performance. And Antonio just made this poetry walk through the woods. And he was evocating all these words, these healing words that were accompanied by the water that was falling in the woods. And also he was guiding the people from the community that they are not used no more to this, to go through the woods as they were these monks following Antonio. And he has this poetry performance that he does that evocates not just his words, but also some other poets from Portugal or other places. But in this case, he also was evoking Camões, that was very well known by the community. And it was a beautiful moment. It was just two hours walking. And he was coming through a way that was the waterway, and then you have the religious way. So he was just going through one and the other, and people was just feeling. And it was very nice, because at some point in the religion way, you have the peace, the walk of the Jesus that he did, like now. And he just was doing these words in a healing way, that people were just doing it all together. And I wasn't expecting that. But in the week after that, people were coming to me and were just repeating Antonio's words and sounds, because he do this kind of earth sounds and these like mantras, and people were repeating me that in the week, like old people that were not coming to the woods. And it was very beautiful to us. And that in somehow just give us like the way of what we are doing there, that it's working in somehow. But this was the first moment, and it was very beautiful. We have a video in Instagram if you want to see it, and you can just walk with him also and listen to the words, the echo of the words. Thank you all for listening, and thank you, Evgenia, also for the invitation.
Thank you, Leonor. Thank you. I truly believe that poetry can be incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah,
for
and people, even the old people, we are working with kids and with very old people with mental problems also, and it's poetry. It's just coming to them and the performative process to them in a different way that I didn't knew that it was possible. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. So the next person who we will invite to share is Mathilde. Abra, where are you? Okay.
Okay, I'm now sharing. I'm not very original. I think you can see it. So this is a difficult question. It's like, please tell me your one in each album, or pick your favorite music or film. So I was in doubt in choosing two different images, but because Landra are here and we are also somehow creating a collective of non-formal school of knowledge during all this time together working from the municipal or the city galleria. So I'm responsible for educational department that it's located and based in a contemporary art center in Crystal Palace Gardens, that are some famous gardens in the city center. And since the beginning, I wanted to work from the gardens, bringing a tangled possibility of working from the botanic of the gardens, but also bringing the colonial practice to work with what was considered nature, separated from human beings, and always framed in a perspective that I wanted somehow to change, and somehow it was also how I learned to be an architect, always separated by what's around me. So this educational program works mainly with artists or people from activism, and this is a project we did with the school on the surroundings of the city of Porto, where we work from the kindergarten to the high school, collecting samples. So we invited Landra as an artist team to design this entire project for the 4 seasons of the year. And during that time, they were collecting samples from the green areas that surrounds the school or are inside the courtyard of the school, that sometimes are already a lot of somehow very aseptic landscapes and very aseptic courtyards. So they did this kind of inquiry, understanding the different green areas that surround, that could be from sand courtyards to bushes and big trees, and collecting those samples from very toddler hands to teenager boys and girls. They were looking by the microscope, projecting on a big screen, and they were drawing and recognizing all these type of bacteria and microorganisms that are here. And since they were drawing with a very beautiful symphony that they composed for the entire project, called the Big Succession, crossing all these different samples of soil were being collected, they start to draw and using weeds or weed-roll herbs that taint, and start to paint over these towels that were used in a big picnic. So they start to grab things that we can eat from area with sand, but also a fruit from a tree. I don't know if I explained it well, but we divide the entire courtyard that surrounds the school in 4 different phases of soil. That's it. So getting out from the institution and going to school to work.
Thank you. Thank you. Really exciting to also hear how an institution is leading a way for this kind of work and supporting art and artists that are ready to these kind of experiences, solutions, and practices. I think it's really important because we could really only do it together if it comes both ways. Thank you so much, Mathilde, for sharing, and I'm inviting Maria.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you, Evgenia. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me here. I have, let me see if I can share it. A slightly different and very hard to document work to share. It's by Nicole Fournier, who some of you might know. She's a Canadian artist who has an ongoing project called Live Dining. And she's been working on this since 2005 in a lot of different iterations. So her work is sometimes seen as like an eco-ventionist project, sometimes an interventionist project, sometimes a community project. She calls it an adaptable concept. In that way, it also works as a regenerative artwork. And the idea is to create spaces where we create a new ecological system, basically, but where we connect the planting, harvesting, cooking, eating, composting, all in one place. So she brings together, for example, she will move the kitchen out into a field. For example, here it's in a cornfield where she called it a Mayan new agriculture. So she created a field where she would plant things in a different way, moving it from a monoculture into a different kind of crop rotation. A lot of her work uses indigenous plants and different kinds of indigenous plants, and how can we bring them back and what does that mean? And it's a performative project, so it continues for a long time, but there is the one part that is key, which is, the dinner. And when it comes to regeneration, I think that what's interesting in how she makes work, which brings the human into the nature or into the more than human, and tries to put things upside down. So you put the kitchen outside, or you compost in the same place as where you're eating, and you're cooking in that same place. And I think that when we speak about regeneration, a lot of the time it's specifically about that relationship and how can we switch that relationship that we have as humans within this. So yeah, I think that was my answer to the question of an example. There's a small part I would like to add. So this one is actually called Corn Dining, and it was made in 2004. So it was just before the start of the Live Dining project. And she would call it backyard Mayan agriculture. So she would create this crop rotation, and she would be in this place for a long time and try to shift the way that people would see their backyard and the way that they could harvest or use or not use the backyard that they were in. And similar as Giovanni's artwork, it's also primarily in urban areas, which is another interesting part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Wonderful. Miley's, the floor is yours. We can't hear you yet. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh God. Hi. Okay, so let's see. I've got a picture here. I don't know why it's done that. There we go. Is that big enough?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Right, well, the picture's not really, anything much except sort of devastation around my place in France that Evgenia has been to, just to sort of, kind of make a commentary on things related to eternal forest and why this project, relates to my project. and just generally stuff that's going on in the world, which is obviously just ongoing ecological devastation. For the sake of something like an empty chair, I mean, it kind of says it in its own philosophical way, that photo, I think. But I'm just going to go really broad strokes, because every project I do kind of boils down to the same basic premise, which is I have been using art as a vehicle to help people engage with nature for decades now, and in the pursuit of doing that in a way that actually walks the talk, I also work with my dad in what is colloquially called, renewable energy, whatever, but it's not technically that. It's a bit more and it's a bit more engaged than that. So sort of parallel to art, I also work in infrastructure. I call it biophilic infrastructure. And so that chair and that forest devastation is on the edge of a place that we are building out called CARE, Centre for Arts and Renewable Energy, or it could be Centre for Arts and Research and Energy, or it could be Conservation Art and Research. I don't know any of it. Basically, it's a place where we are kind of merging art, because all art, requires electricity, because everything we do as humans almost requires electricity, except for obviously land art. So put that aside. But typically, to get there, to eat, to whatever, you're always consuming energy. So basically, by and large, in order to create art, you need energy. And so we're trying to put those things together and help people come and learn how to do that. And so in terms of biophilic systems, what does that mean? It's basically, keeping energy systems within the context of the biosphere, how the biosphere works, and that as the superarching system within which you operate all things. Specifically, for us, it means that your baseload power comes from moon cell technology, which is fuel cells. People do and don't know what that is, but they are not batteries. They are generative, electricity generative devices. And the source of the energy that goes into them to make the electricity is waste. So basically, we kind of work on, if you like, waste to art systems. And the arts role there is to present biophilic systems in our culture in a way that we can actually engage with, because most people really, and I can tell you this from decades of having these two parallel careers, are just not interested in infrastructure and utilities and energy and stuff like that, the things that really are required for us to move out of the extractive industries that make up our culture and into something that is biophilic. So art, for me, it has a very specific role in manipulating people to pay attention to things that would be better if we didn't have to manipulate people over, but we kind of do. And that includes myself. I also get very bored and very annoyed in the industry and the conventional energy, blah, blah, blah. It's an awful place. So for me, it's also a way that I can remain engaged and fulfilled. But I do lots and lots of projects. They're all very different. Feel free to look through my website. I'm not going to bore them with you today. Just the overarching concept is, interactive, immersive ecologies that are powered, hopefully, soon by things that are the thing that those art installations propose we should do practically. So I'll probably just leave it there, unless I shouldn't.
Thank you. I think nobody is hearing my gong anymore. I think Zoom is like blocking this kind of sound. And it's funny to say this because my Liz is a sound artist. I was hoping maybe she can hear it at least. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm really hoping that my Liz will be with the Tunnel Forest at the Gathering of Tribes. And of course, her father as well. They're doing incredible work. So I would like to invite next speaker, Peter Wells.
Cheers. Thank you, Eugenia. Let me see if... Great. Can we all see that? Right on. All right. Well, I guess to cut a long story short, what I'd like to talk about briefly today is a piece of research, which is, I guess, the composite of the last 2.5 years I've spent running around the world and looking at what is essentially regenerative art. How do we create art that is actively regenerating ecosystems and communities and cultures and so forth? So I guess part of the challenge that a lot of us have touched on today that I see is that for the last, point in or sort of chapter in history, our work has been largely stuck into, we've separated out art from the wider range of practice, infrastructure, and general engagement in the world. And so when we show up into impact-based projects or ecosystem restoration or renewable energy systems, any of this stuff, people look at us and they say, why the hell do we need art? Like, what's the point of this? You're just making representational artifacts. And I think there's a valid point in that what we've seen over the last several decades since the early phases of the climate movement is that we have created a lot of awareness raising work, which has been fantastic and has been really successful in parts. But today, what we're often stuck with is when we go to COP and deliver gallery exhibitions, or we create, shows or books that are trying to raise the topic. I don't feel like we're using our impact very well. But what really does excite me is the work that's been going on for the last 50 years, which spun out of the land art movement. And we've seen a couple examples of already of art that is literally regenerating ecologies around it. There's amazing examples of that in the work of the Harrisons, who have done large-scale ecological restoration and planning, all the way up to the Satoshi Triennial that's breathed life back into a small corner of rural Japan. There's amazing examples from Francis Whitehead, who we saw at the very start, and a whole range of people who do bioremediation, who are able to translate real-time ecological data into forms that communities can understand. And stuff that's working on long-term vision planning, even looking at like the Fly Ranch site that Burning Man has been developing, the Black Rock Desert, which is literally working on long-term art projects that are restoring the biodiversity, providing food, energy, shelter, water, and processing waste streams for desert environments. Around the world, there's a whole lot of this stuff that's going on. The challenge is that in order to see it succeed is more often than not that we are essentially dependent on either foundational grants or philanthropic funding. And often this corners the artwork that we're trying to make into a really narrow position of being co-opted by either just essentially wealthy patrons and living in their expansive backyards, or we end up in creating, very small works, but that have a very, very sort of low, essentially a very, very small locus of engagement. So the challenge that I've been trying to figure out for a while is how do we, without entrapping it in metrics, how do we quantify some of the impacts that art has in a way that is able to unlock support for it and makes it intelligible to other land regeneration practitioners? And also, how do we unlock long-term funding for arts? We know that we can show up in a community, and by the end of the first year and a half is when we actually start to have the real conversations and actually start to be able to do real work that goes deeper than just creating something and sprinting toward the end of a residency. So I think that for me is the question that still hasn't been answered by a lot of people, is how do we get 5 to 10 year operational funding for arts and for people like us to really engage in place and to become part of these places and do something that is impactful, that's working from the emergent potential of a locality rather than just trying to race toward creating an artifact that's going to satisfy a patron. So I think there's some great things to point to in terms of what Common Land Foundation has been doing around this. as well as the EU Waterlands project that's currently ongoing. They've managed to get arts into their budget fairly securely, and into the new European Bauhaus, which is an amazing set of work. If you haven't come across them already, they're specifically looking at design, arts, culture, architecture as a way to revitalize small communities and post-industrial landscapes around Europe. So what I'll do is I'll leave it there, but I think that's one of the critical questions that we all have to face is how do we sustain this work in the long term in a way that really matters? And how do we make our impacts tangible in some way that is going to make it intelligible to other people who are not just in the regenerative bubble? Because it's an easy and a comfortable space to be in sometimes, but translating this work into different lenses, I think is going to be really critical for our long-term success.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I gave you a lot of time because I felt you were saying a lot of important things that we all were taking notes of. And yeah, these questions are really important, and we can only figure this out together and also collaborate and work together on a larger scale. That's when we can actually access this kind of funding and long-term support, especially for projects that are regenerative. That's what we need. We need time. So, Sue Spade, I hope you're still with us, and would you like to share, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, I just have, no, I can't see. Wait.
We can see your screen.
All right, but okay, I'm gonna do the whole thing. Okay, so I just want to talk about a project in Cincinnati because that's where I'm currently living and I want to build on this project. So with the first show I did with Amy Lipton, the Ecovention Current Art to Transform Ecologies, we were invited, we had money, we could invite artists to do projects in Cincinnati and we could invite them to do projects outside that. So in this particular case, there was a group that was involved in restoring the Mill Creek, which is a small creek that runs into the Ohio River. And there's a parking lot and the parking lot had runoff and they needed the runoff to be clean before it entered the creek. So Jackie Bruckner designed the system. You can see there's sculptures and they're supposed to have moss on them and the moss cleans the pollutants from the cars before they go into the stream. And it also creates a kind of environment where people can learn about, how plants can clean pollutants and moss can clean pollutants. But there's a couple things that are really great about this project that, in addition to its cleaning, one is that they worked with a local arts organization called ArtsWorks. And I want to build on this project by doing a lot more collaborative projects, because one of the things I realize is that hardly anyone, the people that go into ecological art tend to be people that find it later, usually in grad school. And we need to have a system whereby we can train high school kids to know that this kind of art is possible. So when they go to undergrad and they're taking sculpture classes, they can focus on making this on ecological art. And by the time they get to grad school, I mean, I just think that for me, what I see is there's not enough art historians working in this field, and there's not enough artists who know it's even possible. And a lot of artists do want to do practical things. And so the more people we can train to, well, train isn't the right word, but expose to this way of making art, I think the better off we are. Anyway, so I want to do 3 projects like this every year, so that in 10 years, it's a kind of a massive landscape of ecological projects in one city, with the view that it's not the only ecovention city, that every city in the world that has ecological problems can mimic this kind of approach to solving ecological problems. Okay. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Evgenia.
Thank you so much. And for those who don't know, I really would love you to go online and find the book Ecovention by Sue. And it's an amazing book with lots and lots of examples. And from my perspective, personal perspective, Ecovention comes as close to regenerative art as it possibly can. So it's hands-on projects, hands-on work by the artists from around the world. And so go and find it, and you can download it or buy the book. So Sue, if you can maybe stop sharing your screen.
Okay, sure.
And I'll be the last one to share. I know that we're running a little bit late, but thank you so much, everybody, for your patience. And Audrey, if you can share my picture, thank you. If you can try to go on, put this green, yeah, thank you. So I chose this image because, of course, some of you know that Eternal Forest as a project is being set up, and the long-term idea and vision is to really do actual work as artists, as collaborators with the communities for regenerating places to become protected forest sanctuaries. However, I chose this picture today because A, we don't have specific forest sanctuaries yet that are fixed and that are committed, but I feel that this for me represents one of the first and one of the most important elements that Eternal Forest is bringing into the communities is the circle and the power of circle. And as I was preparing for this encounter today, I wrote this short text, so I'm going to read it to you. Circle is the most powerful form for humans to come together. It creates force so different to any other shape we create. If the circle is true and fulfilled, we can all feel it. If the circle is functional, we can feel it too. For thousands of years, humans have been coming together in circles to listen deeply, share with intention, be heard, sing, dance, co-create ceremonies, and celebrate the passage of time. Throughout history, we have given this power away and replaced the circle with other geometric structures, hierarchical and destructive. Circle is a community that we also let go of by choosing to experiment with high individualism and taking it to the extreme. There is a center in every circle. Sometimes it is a human being, sometimes another one. Sometimes we invite a more than human being into the center of the circle. Sometimes a human being, by the power of ritual, transforms into more than human. And we can witness and be present at this moment while holding the circle for them. In many circles I created, the center of the circle is a tree, as a seed of a forest, and people who gather are the guardians of this future forest. Many beings are invited to stand with us, humans, in that circle. They have their place, their voice, and they can offer their message. Circle connects invisible threads in many different ways. Its geometries are endless, elegant, and beautiful. The practice of the circle is something that I see as an intrinsic part of regenerative art and the art of regeneration. Several years ago, Eternal Forest, as a being, told me to call the power of the circle. And since then, I have been experimenting, remembering, and re-enchanting gatherings through holding circles and through putting all of us into circles. When people come together in a circle, there is a possibility of community to emerge. Thank you. So we can stop sharing the screen. And with this, I guess our sharings are complete for now. Did everybody speak? I hope yes. And Audrey, maybe we could do our last bit that we wanted to.
Yes, we will skip the last breakout because we're a bit out of time. And I think we will just stay in plenary session to do our checkout all together here. For the checkout, I suggest that we go in circle. I can call people. We have about 10 minutes left, so we will keep it short. For the checkout, if we could just each share a two-word checkout, which can be an emotion, a question that you live with, a feeling that arose during the session, whatever comes up for you. I'm aware that we're also here for questions, so if you want to write your questions in the chat, which we will then save and share with you all, that would be fantastic. Simon, am I forgetting anywhere?
No, I think that's absolutely great. Yeah, thank you. Yes, apologies there hasn't been time really to bring out the questions here, but let's do the best we can and just put the kind of questions into the chat, please, that you feel would actually stimulate real conversations and in fact stimulate more art in this particular case. You know, try and put those questions in there if you possibly can. That would be we'd be very grateful for that, because we'll take those forward and bring them eventually to the gathering and elsewhere. So thanks for that. And you know, maybe a couple more than 2 words, but a few words from everybody. You call them out, Audrey. Thanks. But while people are doing that, please carry on and put your questions in. That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Simon. So I will call people in the order of my screen. Evgenia, you're first.
What can I say? I would love to have a possibility to have us all in one space, in a big circle or several ones. And of course, from my side stands not only the invitation to Eternal Forest Art Camp at the Gathering of Tribes in Portugal, because I'm very much aware that not all of us can do it. But this kind of conversation today gives me hope that we could have multiple encounters and multiple conversations and collaborate and contribute to each of other people's projects. Because what I'm also feeling is that a lot of the times in the art system as it is right now, a lot of us are working alone and are kind of running behind the whatever vehicle that's is in front of us. So my hope is that by establishing collaborations and larger scale projects and being able to do that, we can also be a bit more relaxed and truly regenerative for ourselves as humans. So that's my checkout. And
please, everybody else, keep it shorter than that.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's not going to work otherwise. I'll call Leonor and then Simon.
Oh, thank you. So I thank you, everybody. It was perfect. As Evgenia was saying, yes, most of us are working alone with artists, with everything, but alone. So it's very nice to be here and to share and to gather together. So if you want to come to Lusaka, you are welcome. I know it's difficult for who is not in Portugal, but I hope we can repeat these sessions. Thank you all. Thank you, Evgenia, also for the invitation.
Simon and then Rodrigo. I don't know if Sarah is still there.
Thanks. I'm fascinated by the regenerative power of art, and I'm really wondering, I want to know more about it. What is it? What is it? And how do we actually how do we find the right art for the right people and really inspire them? Thanks.
Sarah and Rodrigo, and then Maria.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It's really exciting to have all these people with so many different ideas and different ways of regeneration to come together, because it really gives you hope that you're not sort of alone. And as Evgenia said, it brings more potential to this movement, which is just essential.
Cool. No, let's go.
Thank you, Maria, and then Ines.
Thank you. Just want to say thank you for this beautiful session. It's so nice to hear how diverse people's understanding of regenerative art actually is. And I've been reading through the questions, and I'm really interested in how diverse the questions also are. I thought that was really nice and really lovely, and nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Ines, and then Mauricio.
Well, I'm going to follow Audrey's instructions, and I'm going to do a 2-word checkout. Embraced and visionary.
Thanks. Mauricio and then Andrew.
Very inspiring and inner questioning of the way I'm doing things. So thank you very much. It's very inspiring to be here with you all.
Thank you. Andrew and then Giovanni.
Great, thank you. I love hearing how different artists think. And the question is, how do we all think more like artists?
I'd say hopefulness and engagement are my 2 keywords after this. And I left a question for everybody to consider in the chat.
Thanks. Marta and then Peter. We can't hear you, Marta.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Just gratitude and to remind everyone that even if we feel sometimes as lone trees in the wind, if we look around, we actually have community, forests around us. So just keeping that present for me and for you all from today. Thank you.
Thanks. Peter and then Vishwa.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's great to see you all here today. And yeah, the question would be, how might we define the art that we're making in different ways that are not art, in a way that makes it more accessible to a broader audience?
Thanks. Vishwa and then Maëlys.
Waiting for the impulse to create.
Hi.
Yeah, Maëlys.
Hi, yes. Thank you for everybody's sharing. It's really engaging. And yeah, it's very important to have community with everybody on these quite in trying times. I think it's up to us to catalyze everything that we will see moving forward. There's very little hope in the big powers that be to do that. So art is the path of least resistance in some ways. And I'm really grateful for everything that you guys are doing and hope to meet you in person.
Thank you. Inish
Thanks.
and then Sue.
Ines
Do you
Amado.
this Ines?
Yes, Amado. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Interconnectedness and oneness in that interconnectedness.
Thank you. Sue and then Andrea.
I'm just really grateful to learn about all sorts of new projects I didn't know about. So I'm always excited to add things into the mix. And I'm so confused about what's the difference between ecovention and regenerative art, but I know what regenerative art agriculture is. But anyway, this is a discussion to have in the future. All right, thank you so much.
Come to the gathering, we'll talk about this. Andrea and then Tiago.
I'm inspired, hopeful, and committed, and very much looking forward to meeting you all in person.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you all. It's been great. I'm very grateful for having me here. So the two words would be circularity. I think it was a big word, and diversity and curiosity for all that you have brought us. Thank you so much.
Matilde and then Anya.
Hi, so I've been thinking as a practice on educational mediation and working with communities, more mutualistic relation. I don't know if it comes an image to your mind from science books from our childhood, mutualism, the rhinoceros with right on the top, but can also be the opposite.
Yeah, thank you. Super insightful session. Lots of kind of new, like a diversity of projects and new insights I found, and new connections also between regeneration and art, which were for me kind of two topics that I love, but like I've never really brought this together in that sense. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniela and then Dylan.
Hello, thank you so much, everyone, and all the people that presented. It's really nice to see all the energy and the thought that you have put in this. And I'm inviting a question or a contemplation. How can art elevate the capabilities of both artists and spectators? Not only by engaging them, but also by aiding in their growth or seeing or making them see the world differently. Yeah, and this is something to evoke a conversation, maybe a future conversation.
Dylan and then Ivona.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this space and opening up these conversations. I feel that art and the regenerative sphere are still kind of abstract, and to bring this together is yeah, a difficult conversation almost to have in terms of defining this and bridging the gaps to language for the maybe general population. So my question was, how could we effectively build partnerships between regenerative arts residencies and larger scale regenerative industry? And building on that also, kind of what your question was before, Daniela, about how to make people see that this is necessary and the necessary part of the process. And I feel curious, expanded and regenerated, especially because the photo that you shared at the end of Danielle was from KDF when we planted this forest. And yeah, it was just really nice to see this example and what you were talking about in Circle, because yeah, I had so many volunteers coming up there and also kind of continuing to care for this forest. So yeah, regenerated from that powerfully. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ivona and then Igor. Almost there, guys. 1 minute left. And 4 people.
I'll keep it short. My checkout would be boundless green inspiration and curiosity about the possibilities of new perception and definition of art. Thank you.
Thank you. Igor and then Victor.
Yeah, for me, it's the diversity of approaches and ways of sensing and making sense of the world. That's it.
Thanks. Victor and then Audrey, you're last.
So for me, I love this idea of art as ecological infrastructure. So I'm really excited about exploring that in future talks, which clearly are needed, given we just started.
Thank you. And Audrey, I don't know if you're with us. Probably not, which makes us only 1 minute late. Thank you so much, everyone. Evgenia, thanks for all your work on this. Thank you to all the initiators, artists, curators, beautiful humans who came and gave 90 minutes of their life and more to start the conversation, start asking questions, and check out the link that Evgenia shared about her Eternal Forest Camp at the Gathering of Tribes. And we see you very soon. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.